Have you ever heard of someone doing something so crazy for love that it just blows your mind? Well, get ready for a story that takes that to a whole new level. We're talking about a man who wasn't just head over heels. He was willing to risk everything, and I mean everything, for a woman he'd never even met. This is the unbelievable story of how a seemingly ordinary bank employee pulled off a massive heist, stealing nearly $47 million. The catch? The woman he did it all for didn't exist. Let's rewind to the early 2010s and meet Kensuke Kawamoto. On the surface, he was just another guy working at a Japanese bank. He was in his 40s, described by colleagues as quiet, diligent, and completely unremarkable. He'd been with the bank for years, a trusted employee who knew the ins and outs of the system. No one would have ever pegged him as a mastermind criminal. But beneath that quiet exterior, Kawamoto was living a secret life online. Like many people, he spent his free time on social media. One day, while browsing, he came across a profile that stopped him in his tracks. The photos showed a stunningly beautiful woman, a model from another country. Her profile painted a picture of a glamorous, exciting life, but also one tinged with a hint of vulnerability. Kawamoto was instantly captivated. He sent a message, not really expecting a reply. But she replied, and just like that, his life was about to change forever. They began chatting every day. The woman, let's call her Elena for the story, was everything he dreamed of. She was charming, witty, and seemed genuinely interested in him. She listened to his problems, laughed at his jokes, and made him feel seen in a way he hadn't felt before. For Kawamoto, who led a fairly mundane life, this online romance was an exhilarating escape. He was falling in love fast and hard. Soon, Elena started sharing her own troubles. She told him about her difficult financial situation. She was trying to make it as a model, but things were tough. There were unexpected debts, family emergencies, medical bills for a sick relative. Her stories were always detailed and emotionally compelling. She wasn't just asking for money, she was sharing her burdens with the man she was growing to love. And Kawamoto, completely under her spell, wanted to be her hero. It started small. A few $100s here, $1,000 there to help with an urgent bill. He would wire the money, and she would shower him with gratitude and promises of their future together. She talked about visiting him in Japan, about starting a life with him. These promises were the fuel for his actions. Each time he sent money, he wasn't just solving her problems. He was buying a piece of their shared dream. But Elena's problems never seemed to end. In fact, they only got bigger. The requests for money became more frequent and the amounts larger. Soon, Kawamoto had drained his personal savings. He took out loans. He maxed out his credit cards. But it still wasn't enough. Elena's latest crisis always required just a little more cash. He was trapped. He had already invested so much, not just financially, but emotionally. To stop now would mean losing her, and admitting that everything he had sacrificed was for nothing. This is where the story takes a dark turn. As a longtime bank employee, Kawamoto had intimate knowledge of the bank's internal systems, specifically the international money transfer process. He knew the loopholes. He knew how to move money without immediately setting off alarms. Faced with the prospect of losing the love of his life, he made a fateful decision. He decided to borrow from the bank. He started by making small, unauthorized transfers from the bank's accounts to the accounts Elena provided. He was meticulous. He knew how to cover his tracks, at least temporarily. He would manipulate the records, making it look like legitimate business transactions. At first, he probably told himself it was just a temporary loan, that he would pay it back as soon as Elena got on her feet, and they were together. But one transfer turned into 2, then 10, then dozens. Over a period of several years, this quiet, unassuming bank clerk systematically siphoned millions of dollars. The total amount was staggering, approximately $47 million. It's hard to even comprehend. He wasn't spending it on a lavish lifestyle for himself. He wasn't buying fancy cars or a new house. Almost every single dollar was sent to a woman he had never met, never spoken to on the phone, never even had a video call with. His entire world revolved around the messages and photos on his screen. You might be thinking, how could someone be so naive? How could he not see the red flags? Hindsight is always 20/20. This is a classic example of a romance scam, but on an unprecedented scale. Scammers are masters of psychological manipulation. They don't just ask for money. They build an entire world for their victims. They create a powerful emotional dependency. They isolate their targets from friends and family who might be suspicious, making the victim feel like the scammer is the only person who truly understands them. For Kawamoto, Elena was his everything. Any doubt that crept in was quickly extinguished by her reassurances, her promises of love, and of course, the next manufactured crisis that needed his immediate attention. He was in too deep. The fear of losing her was greater than the fear of getting caught. But a fraud of this magnitude can't stay hidden forever. Banks have audits, and even the most cleverly hidden discrepancies will eventually surface. In 2019, an internal audit at the bank finally uncovered the irregularities. Investigators started digging, and the trail led directly to Kensuke Kawamoto. The scale of the embezzlement was shocking, even to seasoned financial crime investigators. When confronted, Kawamoto's story came tumbling out. He confessed everything. He explained that he had sent all the money, all $47 million, to his foreign model girlfriend, whom he was deeply in love with and planned to marry. He showed them the photos, the conversations, the whole digital history of their whirlwind romance. The investigators had to break the devastating news to him. They did a reverse image search on the photos Elena had used. As you've probably guessed, the pictures were real, but they belonged to a real-life model and social media influencer who had no idea her identity had been stolen. She had never heard of Kensuke Kawamoto. She had never received a dime from him. The woman he had fallen in love with, the woman he had sacrificed his entire life and career for, was a complete fabrication. She was a collection of stolen photos and words typed by a criminal, or likely a team of criminals who had expertly played him from the very beginning. The realization was crushing. The love of his life wasn't real. Their future together was a lie. And the $47 million? It was gone. Funneled through a complex web of international accounts, it had vanished, almost impossible to trace or recover. Kawamoto had not only lost all the money, but he had also lost his dream, his freedom, and his reputation. The legal consequences were severe. He was arrested, and the case made headlines in Japan and around the world. People were stunned by the sheer amount of money and the incredible deception involved. Kensuke Kawamoto was sentenced to a long prison term for embezzlement. His life as he knew it was over. He went from being a trusted bank employee to a convicted felon, all because of a fantasy spun by faceless scammers online. This story is a tragic and extreme cautionary tale. It highlights the incredible power of loneliness and the human desire for connection. Scammers prey on these vulnerabilities with devastating effectiveness. They create a perfect partner, a perfect story, and a perfect trap. Kawamoto's case might be one of the largest of its kind, but thousands of people fall victim to romance scams every year, losing sums both large and small. It's a stark reminder to always be cautious online, be skeptical of people who quickly profess their love, and even quicker to ask for money. Never send funds to someone you haven't met in person, no matter how compelling their story is. Always try to verify a person's identity. A simple video call can often expose a scammer who is hiding behind stolen photos. The story of Kensuke Kawamoto is a sad one. He wasn't a malicious criminal in the traditional sense. He was a man who was deeply lonely and fell for a cruel, calculated lie. He paid an unimaginable price for his belief in a love that only existed on a screen. It is a powerful lesson about the dangers that lurk in the digital world and the importance of guarding not just our money, but also our hearts. Thanks for watching, and remember to stay safe out there. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories. See you next time.